Democrats make all of these accusations of power grabbing by the Trump administration, such as Trump won't accept the election results if he loses. He's not going to transition power of the White House, or the GOP is stealing court seats. And we've even heard accusations such as Trump is going to go for a third term if he gets a second term. But in reality, what I want to point out to you here is that Democrats are actually projecting everything they are actually the ones doing onto Trump and the GOP. And I'm not saying this to defend Trump or the GOP. My point in bringing this up is so that you can, the sooner I think people who are on the left, the sooner people who support Democrats or who think that they're the lesser of two evils, I think the sooner that they realize that they are just as power hungry, they are just as bought off and just as corrupt as the GOP, and that they themselves are also big power grabbing warmongers, I think the sooner we can move forward once we realize this towards creating a solid third party option. And so really my point in bringing this up is to open your eyes, to get them, stop allowing yourself to be brainwashed by the Democrats on this stuff. So let's go through this point by point on these three things to show you how Democrats are actually the ones power grabbing and that it's not actually Trump and the GOP on this. I mean, maybe they are a bit, but this is Democrats absolutely projecting. Now, we have seen, first, let's start off with this one, because this poll came out in Reuters. This was a poll, a survey conducted from October 13th through the 20th. And this is about transitioning of power or accepting the election results. Now, we've heard this narrative over and over and over in the mainstream media where they're saying, oh, they're not going to accept the election results. Trump and the GOP, they're not going to accept the election results. I hear a lot of people that that do support Biden that say, oh, what I'm really afraid of is if Biden wins, what these Trump supporters are going to do. I think there's going to be riots and looting and vandalism and violence in the streets. I hear this one all the time. And I'm always kind of dumbfounded by this, because I don't think that, look, we have seen over the summer that people that tend to support Biden or are on the left have the propensity to be quite violent and have definitely shown that they're able to burn cities down to the ground, burn areas of cities down to the ground if they're not getting what they want. And I don't see that so much coming from Trump supporters or from GOP supporters. Conservatives seem to be more likely to buy a lot of guns, buy a lot of supplies, and shelter in place. They're like, oh, we got to hunker down because the socialists or communists are coming or whatever. But I've seen more of the left side coming out, and taking to the streets and creating a lot of chaos. So I find that interesting. But this Reuters poll comes out, and this actually supports what I was just saying. It says the survey conducted from October 13th to the 20th shows 43% of Biden supporters would not accept a Trump victory, while 41% of Americans who want to reelect Trump would not accept a win by Biden. So that looks pretty split, 43% on both sides. 43% of Biden supporters, 41% of Trump supporters would say no, they would think that the election results are illegitimate. Now, when they ask them, would you take to the streets and protest or even resort to violence? When they asked the question to the people in the poll, 22% of Biden supporters and only 16% of Trump supporters said they would engage in street protests or even violence if their preferred candidate loses. So that right there shows that the supporters themselves are who would be more likely to not accept the election results is actually people not coming from the Trump camp, but coming from the other side. And I think these last 4 years of Russiagate with the Democrats have shown us that they do not accept they don't even accept the 2016 election results, let alone if they lose again in 2020 this year. I mean, they've had a difficult time even accepting 2016. So this whole narrative of, oh, it's going to be these Trump people and the Republicans, and they're not going to accept the election results if Joe Biden wins. Guys, I mean, look in the mirror. You're the ones who haven't been accepting these results at all. You've impeached the president. You've gone after him for anything and everything you possibly could in order to get him out of office. And I think that it's so to believe this narrative of, oh, no, I'm worried about what Trump supporters will do. Where have you been for the last 4 years? Stealing court seats. Now, this one, we've, heard the Democrats saying about Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and now Amy Coney Barrett because of Merrick Garland and what happened when Barack Obama nominated Merrick Garland and he never got a Senate hearing. And so they say that these other Supreme Court seats were stolen because they really should have belonged to Merrick Garland. Obviously, only one of those seats maybe would have belonged to Merrick Garland. The other two would have been appointed by Trump no matter what, right? So interesting that there is this idea that it's the GOP stealing court seats. Now, I don't think there was really nothing stolen about these seats. It was a legitimate process, as much as people want to say it was illegitimate. It's clearly in the Constitution, a legitimate process. But the one thing that Democrats are not able to answer for is court packing. This has been brought up over and over. They've been questioned on this, and they've even said that nothing is off the table. Chuck Schumer has said if they win the election, nothing is off the table when it comes to court packing. So what is court packing? Court packing is the idea of expanding the Supreme Court, expanding the number of justices on the bench. So this was an idea that was actually floated by FDR back in the 30s. He wanted to expand the Supreme Court from 9 justices to 15. And really, the reason why FDR wanted to do it was because he wanted justices to retire once they hit the age of 70. I think today we could probably bump that age up to 78, let's say, because life expectancy is longer now in 2020 than it was in 1937 or 1936 or whenever. But essentially, his idea was for every justice that wouldn't retire at the age of 70, that he would be allowed to then add a justice to the court for every justice that refuses to retire. It was meant to be a strategy, actually, when he brought it up, to try to get justices to retire, to kind of motivate them to retire or to force them into retirement. And today, this idea is being floated again. A lot of Democrats are talking about expanding the Supreme Court now that it is a 6-3 conservative majority. And look, that is an abuse of power to say once we get in there, we're going to change the rules. And Democrats do this a lot. They change the rules only to live to regret it. They were the ones that changed the rules on the filibuster in the Senate. It used to be where if you wanted a justice appointed to the bench, you needed to get 60 senators to vote in favor of that justice. That meant if you were a simple majority of Republicans or Democrats in the Senate, you needed to persuade people on the other side of the aisle to agree to vote for your justice that you've nominated. That meant the justices were more moderate. They were not nearly as extreme right or left in one ideological way, because in order for you to get that justice through, you had to persuade people on the other side of the aisle to come join you. Democrats are the ones that got rid of that rule, and now they're living to regret that now that the Senate has only a simple Republican majority. Had they still had that filibuster rule, these Supreme Court justices that we're going through would definitely need to be much more moderate, less extreme in the ideological in the ideological spectrum. So court packing is one that, it's another abuse of power that the Democrats are bringing up. It's another bad idea that Democrats are bringing up. They will live to regret it. It is not good. But I just want to point out that the ones who are wanting to bend the rules are actually the Democrats on this point. And the last point that they keep bringing up, that I think is the biggest of the points, is this idea that Trump is going to go for a 3rd term because he wants to be a supreme emperor for life. This is kind of the narrative that Democrats have been painting. And the reality of it is, guys, wake up. The Democrats have created a plan to take over the White House for 12 years, and they've implemented this plan. And that is, they know Joe Biden cannot last 4 years. We all know Joe Biden cannot last 4 years, and they're even paving the way for maybe Joe Biden to be forced to resign, whether it be that they find out, okay, there is this scandal with, the Hunter Biden stuff, and Joe Biden was helping grease his family's, or line his family's pocketbooks with lots of dollars from foreign countries or whatever. That is a possibility. It's also he's got a mental decline, obviously, that we've all noticed. And so Democrats are banking on this. And I really believe that they've always wanted Kamala Harris. Hillary Clinton has always wanted Kamala Harris. She was giving Kamala Harris all of her resources. She absolutely wants Kamala to be president. Tulsi Gabbard took Kamala out. That's why Hillary Clinton went after Tulsi Gabbard so hard, because that dashed her hopes and dreams. But they had Plan B, which was Joe Biden. And this actually turned out to be a better plan, because Joe Biden can go in there, win that 1st term, step down after 2 years. Kamala Harris takes over for those final 2 years, and then she constitutionally can have 2 more years after that. She can constitutionally serve 10 years. This is Democrats power grabbing for a 3rd term, meanwhile pointing the finger at the GOP and Trump, saying that they're the ones who are doing this to us. No, it's the Democrats. And they've look, Trump going for a 3rd term, them giving us this narrative is not realistic at this point. We'd have to change a lot of things. We don't have to change anything to implement the plan that they've already put in motion. Nothing has to change. It's already set in the Constitution. All they have to do is get Joe Biden to step down after 2 years. So the reality of it is, I just want to point out that these guys are absolutely projecting everything they're doing already, from not accepting election results to court packing and saying that they're, to changing the courts and stealing seats, or just creating seats for them to steal, and also going for that 3rd term. They're the ones doing it, and they're projecting it onto the GOP. And the sooner you realize this, the sooner you realize that they are not the good guys, that they are just as power hungry, that they are just as corrupt, the sooner we can get together, reject both sides, and say, no, we need a viable 3rd party in this country. That is what we need. Thank you guys so much for watching, by the way. Really appreciate this. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. Also hit that bell. If you are watching this on another platform, those of you might be, this is now kind of a long form show. The link is down below if you want to watch that long form show. Then I appreciate you watching that here, wherever you're watching that, whatever platform you're watching on. So thank you guys so much. Also, if you'd like to email me, you can. I love to get your comments, your questions, your ideas. Sometimes you guys send me some excellent research. Kim@KimIverson.com.